Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight Entertainment. I'm your host, Alexis, and I'm joined by Alexis Moreno and also David Francisco today. So two Challengers fans. I'm not sure about the third one, man. I'm not sure he'll ever see it, so we'll have to keep we'll have an open tab running on that one. If you saw last week's show, then I'm sure you know what we're talking about. If not, well, then you missed out, because it was an amazing show, and I thank Alexis for being on that one. This is, of course, the show that brings you everything coming out of the world of movies and more. And this week we are going to take a deep dive into the Planet of the Apes franchise, and of course a review of the latest installment, which would be Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, directed by Wes Ball, as well as other happenings and ongoings in the world of movies and TV, like, you know, House of the Dragon coming back. Evidently I had no idea it was coming back this month, but it is, and I'm not ready for it. But it makes no difference, because Alexis is, and she will force the rest of us to be ready for it. So we're going to watch it when it comes back, exactly how it was the first time. None of us really wanted to, but she made us see it. But then it was too good to ignore, so we'll be back in the same situation again. Yes, I should be saying thank you. Yeah, for that. You just pulled a whole Peter moment right there. You're welcome. That's exactly the thing that he would say in the exact same way as well. We'll also be discussing, some shitty comments that were made left and right about the state of the business, which has been unforgivingly infuriating. So that'll be our show here today on episode number 484. Before we get this show underway, I do want to throw out a couple of disclaimers to our audience members. First of all, we should remind everyone of the shows that we have going on our channel, which include Quest Center and Turn to Page. David Francisco has done an amazing job producing all of those shows and editing all of those shows, including this show that we're on right now, Red Spotlight, and of course the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. reaction commentary series, which we have been enjoying very much so, and we will continue to do as the weeks and months go on. So again, as usual, thank you, David, for facilitating doing all of that, and for our audience who are listening and watching, we have plenty of offerings for you on the network. So thank you for that, David, and also thank you for those who are watching and listening. And I hope you do get something out of this, because ultimately, for the most part, we do use this as something of an overglorified therapy session. On that note, part of the disclaimers I want to throw out is, I don't know, I don't exactly feel 100% today, for a whole host of reasons. You might hear me hacking. You see, on cue. That wasn't even forced. That literally just happened right now. I have this cough that refuses to go away, so the Morenos have that excuse literally every other week, so I think I'm okay having it this time. I have just finished a particularly emotional week in the occupation that I serve. It never fails to be less emotional. I feel that as the years go by, the more I end up becoming, and I am personally kind of in a not unstable position right now. I'm just a little bit I'm trying to be lax about it. But it's definitely gotten to me this year. So with that, I'm gonna go a little slower today, hopefully not to trip over my words. And I'm not gonna make a promise that that's not gonna happen. It probably already happened once or twice just now, but we're gonna push through as best we can, and we're gonna have a good time, as we always do. I know last week for me, I have to say, it was particularly enjoyable and entertaining as all hell, just getting to sit down with Alexis and talking about all of the stuff, including the Challenger stuff, which is so much fun. So we're going to continue to do that and bring you guys a show today and that I think is going to be worthwhile. So those are your disclaimers out there. I know, the other one would be that we're all very tired, but we usually are all very tired when we do this show anyway, and we still do it. So it's like, it's not really anything new. It's just par for the course.
I feel like we tried for a long time to see, like, what time would be better. Like,
we did?
Like, we would do mornings. We would do later at night. We would do, like, mid-afternoons. We just kind of figured we're always tired anyway.
Someone's always going to be tired. I mean, we tried doing mornings.
I feel like that was the worst. I absolutely hated those.
It was terrible. The only person that liked them was Kyle. Which is why, of course...
he goes to bed at 6.
Yeah. And, of course, he recently made us do a fucking morning show for, I believe it was the second part of our decade so far favorite episode.
That was in the morning?
Yeah. Why do you think I had a fucking coffee mug with me? It's like, it was fucking early. It was like fucking like 9, and I'm like, doing a podcast at 9 in the morning? It was gross. It was disgusting. And I blame Kyle. And he doesn't care. Because he thinks that literally right now he's probably asleep. It's 8:40 p.m. And he's probably asleep right now.
In his fifth dream right now.
In his... Yeah, in his 5th dream. So, yeah. Here's that. So, again, that's just what we bring to the show here. I also want to just, on a personal note, thank both of you for having the desire to come back here and do this show. I know that for a long stretch there, after Kyle took one of his several breaks, it really just kind of became me and Peter for a couple of years there. And it really, and we all knew going into this. Of course, did he give you much of a heads up? About a month. No, I'm gonna say that again, but you know how he is. But for the last 2 years, especially, his appearances on this show, I will say, are a lot more than I think we thought were possible initially. But he's been trying. 2 fucking years. And I was like, when he told me first, oh my God, what am I going to do? How are we going to make this work? And not that you two couldn't be relied upon, but it is a weekly show. And sometimes it's hard to make that commitment, you know? So I wanted to personally thank you two for, of course, continuing.
He only gave you a month?
Let me leave the door open in case he will crucify me, because he usually loves to. He probably might claim something else, but it felt like to me that it maybe was like, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say maybe it was more 2.5 months. Although I'm not quite sure how much better that is. It's a little bit better. But it was, I believe, the summer before. So, summer 2022, we're talking about my first Comic-Con trip. It was Nope, the Jordan Peele movie came out. Something else came out. I can't recall at the moment.
It went by fast, though. I'm not sure he'll say the same, but...
He wouldn't say the same. And... let's just be clear about that. His envy has no bounds. Only because of the things that he has, unfortunately, had to pass on. The most important of which being the show, of course, you know, that's the most important thing. But other things is he wasn't able to go on any of the other trips that we had already, you know, done. But I know he especially is jealous. He won't say he's jealous, but you know that he is. Of you specifically, because you literally travel the world, Alexis. You've been to Japan. You just came back from Ireland, Scotland, and all those other places, and of course that's not even counting the excursions to San Diego or Los Angeles every other weekend. So There's a particular amount of hatred in terms of how he types his responses to like she's gone again. When I tell
What did
him
he
like
say?
where you are.
Why are you never in America?
Though we did have, I guess, recent by our standards, but the last time we were able to be in person was last August. I want to say you came down for August. We watched the Jordan Peele movie.
Oh yeah,
yeah, we were here for that, and we had that wonderful reaction. I'd never seen him laugh like that before.
Yeah,
that was so funny to me.
Weird.
I have to wonder, maybe because he was just so, beaten to a pulp at that point. The nursing program of which he's involved with is very, infamous for doing that, and happily so. Yeah, that was a funny. It's on my Instagram if anybody wants to watch the video. It's 4 minutes long. Like he was laughing like the Joker in moments, and I'm like, whoa, interesting stuff there. And then of course, I feel like anytime he's been on, he feels like he has to make up for lost time, and so like he extra like twists the knife, more than he would, I think, or maybe it's been so long that I don't remember how those shows were. But maybe it could be
you
that
took a break from the abuse, and you breathed a little fresh air.
Yeah. Because you two are like you have your own things, and I don't think you don't bother me really. I mean, we don't necessarily agree on all the same things, but like we're pretty cordial about these things. Abuse is not quite something that is our forte, but that should be something of a warning for our listeners and viewers that might be returning to the show in the not so distant future. Only because I have been made aware that. That enduring nightmare has apparently come to an end. At the moment that we are recording this podcast, I believe our own Peter Martinez is at his graduation ceremony for that. And we, of course, applaud him. We congratulate him on that wonderful achievement. I know it's certainly something the rest of us would not even last even a day. I think I would commit suicide before I would finish that.
I work at a kid's dental office.
The way you said that, wait, Alexis. The way you said that, you just looked into the void.
Yeah.
Like it was like all this despair.
I had so many things to say at once that I was like, "What do I choose?" I just have to say, I don't want kids after that.
I'm not sure you wanted them before.
True, fair.
But this only just like seal the deal. Yeah, for sure. You and I happen to share that in a way that we do work around kids. I'm a full-time substitute teacher.
Yeah. Why do we do this to ourselves?
I don't know. I will say that a lot of me has been like changed by that experience, and I never imagined myself as the type that would be good in that kind of environment. And there are days where I'm just like want to like rip my head off my body and throw it to the wolves. But it has been an increasingly rewarding experience. I think to me, it has been something of a unique thing. In the last year, I don't know if I made this known to the people on this show, but I had been seeking a teaching credential where I live in the state of California. And I'm about 2/3 of the way done with it, and I still need about half of the year to go. But to me, there's no greater teacher than actually being thrown in there and doing the experience, which I had a good deal amount before I actually, did these classes. The kinds of relationships and bonds of all kinds that I've been able to form these last 2 years, especially this last year, with, the students and my colleagues, the other teachers, is something I never thought that I would ended up being as good as it was. You know, I had it real good. I was a substitute teacher, but I was needed so often that I would work 4 or 5 days a week easy at the same school, oftentimes the same grade level throughout this last year. And week in and week out, you get to know these kids, you know? And I grew so closely with especially the 4th grade team. That's the level that I prefer. But I grew so closely with all those teachers. I mean, they're just genuine friends at this point. They've been so supportive of what I want to do and letting me in their classrooms. But these kids, especially that we just let go of today, it was, I'm not going to say that it was like the hardest thing, but it does catch you by surprise how you feel after they've left. I had I watched from a close distance a teacher who is still there. I say still because she was a teacher when I was a 5th, 4th grader at that same elementary school, and she's still there. And I saw from a distance that she was, hugging the student who was leaving, and she wouldn't see next year because she was moving on to a different school.
Who?
And they were...
Who?
The teacher's name?
Yeah.
I don't know if she'd want me to say her name. I'm not, like, she's gonna watch this. But I know, like, but I don't.
What does it start with?
S. It's like it's a weather. It's like the weather. You know when something hits?
I thought she was a PE teacher. What the fuck?
No, I don't know what school you went to. I know you went to that same school, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe you.
I think we were like in 4th grade together, or 6th grade.
The same class?
I think so. We were in a grade.
I don't remember
together.
you at all. Like, what are you talking about? We were in the same class.
You.
Like, I know we were. I don't know. Well. Okay, that's a discussion for a different.
In middle school, we were.
Yeah, I
behind
think. Yeah.
me.
Yes.
Okay, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. You sound like there was like a person in between us.
Okay, well, we have some discussions to have off screen because that's interesting. There, it's funny because like we spent our whole like childhoods around each other, but we weren't actually friends until after school.
I mean, I knew you
because
you had the same name as me.
Yes,
like, that's how I knew you.
Maybe Alexis is.
Yeah. Kyle, I knew for very different reasons.
Yes, same here. Same here. But I saw her at a distance, and she was embracing the student who was about to leave, and I could see that they were both getting very emotional. And then as they were walking away, she says to me, some are a lot harder to let go than others, and I was feeling the exact same thing as well. So you put so much of yourself into this. And it was a really good year. And while I am happy it's over, part of me isn't. Part of me is like, oh well, now we get to start all over again in the following year. So there's that.
I mean, I think that like the good thing about what you do is you're able. I mean, if you wanted to, you're able to see them throughout the years, whereas like if you were a 1 grade teacher, 1 subject teacher, you wouldn't be able to do that. Case
in point, many of the kids I have seen literally grow up from 1st grade to 4th grade, or from 2nd grade to 4th grade, one of which who I would say I've had the closest bond with, and I've watched him when he was in 2nd grade to 4th grade, and I've worked closely with him I think all 3 years of those. He had a great year this year, and I rewarded him with something he'd been asking me for a long time, and he was... You should have seen the excitement on his face yesterday. I didn't think he would like it that well, and I was like, wow. You think to yourself, is this what it feels like to be the P word? Not that I would want to be that, Not that I think I would want to, but then parent.
Okay.
Sorry, parent. PARENT. Sorry. I don't want to say that out loud because if I say that out loud, then I don't want to speak things into the universe. I don't want that to happen anytime soon. So, but thank you two for just completely just disregarding that
felt
and having
like Peter.
just can't win here. Okay, thank you. But no, it made me feel the closest thing I ever felt like to maybe this is what it feels like.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was that same one that he would not let go of me today. I was just trying to leave and walk out and go home, and he wouldn't. And I'm gonna see you next week. You're gonna be in summer school. I'm gonna see you next year. You're gonna be in 5th grade. So, but no, I loved my time this year. I absolutely, for as much anxiety and stress that it gives me, I love what I do, and the other thing I should mention, and you brought it up yourself, because I'm at that site most of my time, and as a sub and as a roving sub, I'm able to hop around all the grades, so I get to mingle literally with all of the grades and know them. From, I know a lot of really good kids who have formed bonds with. I would say 5th and 6th, not as much this year because they don't need me there as often. From anywhere from 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st, kindergarten, and TK, transitional kindergarten, and those I'm like, whoa. My first day there was like, what the fuck? These kids are like, they're
That's
so
when
little.
You don't want to be a parent.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's caused a lot of, I would say, change in myself, and I would say a lot healthier. It also is weirdly enough that a lot of those kids literally live on my block. Like, I want to say like 7 kids that go to that school that I know personally live on this block that I live on.
That would happen a lot, though. Like, a lot of the substitute teachers that we had growing up lived in the area that we lived in. Like, I would see them outside.
Would you?
Yeah. I think there was a 2nd grade teacher. I'm gonna just name her because we haven't been in 2nd grade. We literally just had her 11-year, like, high school, not a reunion, but, like, we graduated 11 years ago.
Did you have to say that out loud? What the hell's wrong with you? We're trying to tiptoe around that. We were doing so good, Alexis, and now you got to bring up our fucking age here. It's like people are gonna do the math, and it's just like, and you know what? I just, like, we congratulated Peter. You know what that fucking asshole did on last week's video? Did you see that fucking comment that he left? He left a fucking comment on one of our videos, and he was saying, when is the old guy on the right gonna shut up and talk about the movie? And I'm like, I know I don't look that old, okay? And when I saw that comment, I'm like, I saw a P in the, like, and I know who the fuck this is. I fucking click on the title, on the damn thing, and it's like, oh, and it says Peter Martinez. Like,
anyways, my 2nd grade teacher lived on my street, like, growing up. So,
do you remember your first, 2nd, or 3rd grade teacher? Their names?
So I do. My my kinder and 1st grade teachers were in San Diego. And
That's
then
right.
My 2nd...
You were in Paradise, and then you were, deported to the desert.
Yeah. So my first teacher in the valley was Mrs. Rosas.
Okay.
And then...
Rosas?
Uh-huh.
Huh. I know one. I'm not sure. Well, we'll see. I'll show you a picture of her. Next.
My 3rd grade teacher, I don't remember her name, but I remember she was very mean. And all I remember was trauma. I remember...
Was it Oakley? Well, you were at Oakley, right?
Yeah, uh-huh. I remember she used to work for the church.
Well, that would explain it then.
Yeah.
No further questions asked.
Like, it got to the point where, like, my mom had to get involved at some points.
Oh, boy.
And you know me. Like, I'm not... You know. So, for it to get to that point, stuff was going down.
Dang.
And then, 4th grade... Well, now I don't know if I should say them.
Yeah, well, just... Again, that we can probably say
you
this
work
for
with them.
No. Yeah, that's the thing. Well, I'm not sure. A lot of them are not there anymore. I would say from that era, the only one that's left, there are 2 that are left.
I mean, I think maybe the only one that might not be there is my 6th grade teacher, which was Miss Huff. I loved her. She was great. She had, like, the best sense of humor.
I remember her. Anyway, the point is that should give our listeners and our viewers a little bit of insight into our personal, professional lives, which have understandably eaten up a lot of our time, right? So, yeah, maybe we'll see Peter back on the show. Maybe not. Let's see how long it takes me to get over that fucking comment that he left. Jesus Christ. Anyway, as we transition into what we want to discuss today, there are a couple of things that we had in our minds. Just to button up some things from last week, we discussed some of the casting for Knives Out 3. It has since been confirmed that Josh Brolin is now going to be in the cast, and another big get. Was Jeremy Renner already confirmed last time that we discussed it?
Yeah, I think it was.
Okay.
No. I don't think it was. It was confirmed after.
It was Jeremy Renner, Mila Kunis now, and then also Josh Brolin had now been confirmed for the cast and stuff. And I believe they're going to start filming pretty soon. That's going to be fun. So we have that going. As far as other stuff, House of the Dragon is coming back this month, as you said. And there was a bit of a teaser. I saw like a little bit of it, but I don't like to watch trailers, honestly. I'm like, I'm gonna watch it like pretty soon. So unless like you force it, and by that like I'm in a theater and I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, well I'm gonna watch it. But I'm like,
I haven't seen the trailer either.
I didn't see it very closely.
I mean, it's not really spoilers because we kind of figured what that was gonna happen. But just like images of like reactions to certain things.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, I know there was like a video with like Damon and Rhaenys having a conversation, and then Damon and one of the Gold Cloaks guy, like the twin guard, him having a conversation with him. But I didn't really hear, like, I it would go on, and then I would take it off because I didn't want to. I didn't want to know what they were talking about. But
my expectation is a lot of death.
But I just finished watching the first season again, and I think because we spent so long like not thinking about it, because it would just I think get us
It's
angry.
been a long time. It's been a long
we didn't
time.
have it.
I should still say we should all be personally insulted that Patty Considine was ignored in the award season.
Yes. Oh my god.
Completely ignored. At the same time, by the way, remember, I'm still pissed at everything else that, you know, Succession, Hacks, the Bear and Ted Lasso. I'm not crapping on any of those shows. Some of those shows I actually enjoy myself. Abbott Elementary got a lot of attention, and it's an amazing show if you haven't seen it. But, like, where the fuck was this energy at the same time we had House of the Dragon and we had Andor? And how is it that those were just so ignored, like, across the board? Meanwhile, whoa, what fanfare we had when fucking The Mandalorian came strolling along and got nominations in writing and directing.
Yeah.
So I'm still pissed off about that.
I forgot about that because I can't believe that happened. But it's so good.
I mean, Patty Considine should have been nominated from this show. But then what about Genevieve O'Reilly and Stellan Skarsgård from the Andor show? It's like those two also should have been in the conversation, and they weren't even in the conversation. They weren't even in the conversation.
Facts.
And like Andor and Hot D, when they came out together, like it really reminded us how much genre storytelling, how great it can be. And how up there it is with everything else, you know, when it wants to. Yeah. And it's just so irritating how
I forgot about that they both came out around the same time, and The Crown.
Both ignored. Yeah,
it was like back to back to back.
The only one, though, I gotta say, giving credit where credit is due. You guys always want to cancel them, but you can't cancel them at this point. The Golden Globes were the only people to recognize House of the Dragon. Did they not give it Best Drama Series? Mm-hmm. So just putting that out there yet again. I'm excited for this season, of course. I will definitely watch it, and we probably will be talking about that on the show. So, I mean. I don't want to say that out loud because I feel like we don't necessarily have the capacity to do that. We'll have to discuss it off screen.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna have to because logistics are not on our side. With you two, especially about to move, for any, let's just say, potential projects to just come out of nowhere. That's all I'm gonna say. But in some form, we are gonna talk about this show. So just be, expecting that. Now the other thing. So the Galactic Star Cruiser is something that obviously was a bust. And I think to a lot of people, it was a bust on various levels. And I think a lot of people took time for it to really sink in how big of a bust it was. It was many, many years ago at this point where Disney first announced the Star Wars Hotel. That's how it was first announced. And the prospect of that seemed like a no-brainer. It's like, well, yeah, of course you gotta do a Star Wars Hotel, and that sounds like fun. And I feel like, considering the turn of events that have transpired, if they had just done a normal themed hotel to Star Wars, that probably would still be running today. Mm-hmm. Whereas the Galactic Star Cruiser no longer exists. And I think we touched on it a little bit on the last show, Alexis, with you and I, but I think it's important to also reiterate how rare it is for something at Disney to be to this much a degree of a disaster, to the point where they just up and close it up. They closed up and they went home. And that's a stinging, embarrassing defeat that Disney doesn't quite have such familiar ground with. There have been plenty of blunders. In fact, there are blunders that happen all the time. More than their fair share of amounts of incompetence, left and right. Let's not forget, it was in recent years where one of their executives, I believe, called Disney fans fat or something. It was one of those comments.
Oh, yeah.
It was... yeah, it's been... Yeah, so listen. It is what it is. But this particular circumstance, which has recently been profiled very nicely so by the lovely and talented Miss Jenny Nicholson. I mentioned last week that I would watch it. I have now watched it. And I think you can call her thing an expose, because a lot of us weren't really that aware of it really at all. Like, we knew
But
of a
in that
galactic
detail,
cruiser, but
I
the
think.
detail that she presented, I think, really broke down why it was such a cataclysmic and abysmal failure. I think from the outside looking in, there really wasn't that much appeal to a lot of people of the Galactic Star Cruiser. It was LARPing, you know. It was and it was grossly, extravagantly expensive. And that particular detail gets even more disgusting when you realize what you actually were getting for that kind of money, which is showcased in the video. But it's honestly, it's not something most people would want to do themselves on a vacation. And the fact that they could not see that for themselves, the people at Disney, really just goes to show you, just like, oh, we got some dum-dums working over there. In fact, we got some dum-dums working all over the place. We'll get to Pixar in a minute. But when it comes to this situation here, we really can't stress enough how big of a failure it was. And that isn't to say that, like, every aspect of the Star Cruiser was, you know, terrible and awful. It wasn't. There were some highlights, and there was some stuff that was there that was, you know, worth recognizing. But that word worth doesn't really have much value when you consider the amount of money you're putting into it. I'm going to say it outright that after having seen Jenny's video, this might be one of Disney's, short-lived as it was, very much so, greatest accomplishments in just, or greatest practices in outright theft that I had ever seen. Because by no means were people getting anywhere near the value of what they were spending on what they were getting out of this experience. I already mentioned that, at least to me, and I think Alexis and Kyle were on the same page, we're not only big theme park, you know, heads, but we're also just big Disney people. We've gone to theme parks our whole lives. We're literally in the know, or we tried to be as much as we can be. And we were until things got dark and terrible, and then we were like, okay, whatever, fuck you. But, you know, we go back in and out of it every now and then,
Yeah.
right? But
sometimes something will pique our interest like this.
yes.
But
this piqued our interest because of like, okay, here's finally somebody going to tell us what happened here.
Yeah.
You know?
And I mean, like, because a lot of the things that she was saying, we have been saying too, obviously not to that detail and not to that degree, and we didn't actually experience it. But you could tell, like, you know, one of the things that stuck out for me was it's literally what Galaxy's Edge was supposed to be. But they're just charging you $6,000 to go see.
And I love how Jenny, at the end of her video, really wrapped it back around to some of the things about Galaxy's Edge that still continue to be failures. I think, to me, I'm never going to forget when I first found out some of the details that were coming out in the lead up to Galaxy's Edge opening up. And to this day, I continue to be so profoundly disgusted at the notion that just about everything, that they even had the fucking thought to have stuff to do in this big themed land and just charge you left and right. If you want to build a lightsaber or build a droid or go to a fucking cantina, and they made it purposefully small, they did all, excuse me, all these things. And that's never happened before. That was never done. And that was the beginning of where we are right now, where the company is just so emboldened to charge you left and right. That's because of that. I know it doesn't seem like a straight through line, but because that happened, we're now at a place where you have to pay for fucking fast passes. So it's like, it was a really bad precedent, but it also really shot themselves in the foot, because you really opened with, correct me if I'm wrong, did it not only open with Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run?
Yep.
it took a while for Rise to finish, correct?
Yeah. About a year or two?
Wow.
Maybe more because of COVID.
Wow. That's bad. Because Rise of the Resistance is the only really is the only reason to be there for the most part.
Actually, I think Rise opened right before COVID.
Mm-hmm. I think so. Mm-hmm. It had, as a themed land, if you would just have made the lightsaber stuff and the droid stuff free, and if you made the cantina more accessible, I think there would have been more goodwill.
I mean, take Avengers Campus right now.
Do we have to discuss what that?
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's literally a giant warehouse shop and a Spider-Man ride that sucks. I'm sorry. Like, it's so stupid.
I still haven't gone on it and have no intention to go on it.
It's so bad. Like, yeah. I went on it and was like, what the fuck is this? They were supposed to have well, I guess, well, no, I don't count, Guardians, because that was already there.
Yeah, they just threw it in there.
So, yeah, I don't know. David hasn't seen it.
Well, look, I just feel like if we're talking about instances in that video that really kind of like shocked us, you know?
Oh, there is something for me.
Yes.
So, David, I don't know if you know, I mean, we said it kind of a few times already, but the price to get in there was $6,000 starting rate, not including, like, going to the parks, not including if you want to make your own droid, not including if you want to make your own lightsaber. That is all separate. Not including, obviously, a plane ticket, not including transportation, not including a lot of things. Mm-hmm. Plus, this is what I got from it, but I could be completely wrong. It was $6,000 per person, right? And you slept in bunk beds.
I think I remember the bunk beds part, yeah. Or at least, like, about the parts.
So if you're a family of 4, it's $6,000
each.
For each.
It's like you're paying for a cruise.
I thought it was $6,000 for the room.
Jesus fucking Christ. I mean, that alone killed it. Let's just be real.
Yeah. That makes no
like,
sense.
who's gonna... Disney World is right there. And it probably would be cheaper in some instances. Go to fucking Disney World. Don't go to the Galactic Star Cruiser.
The most expensive hotel, at least in California, I'm not too sure of the prices in Florida, which would be the Grand
Californian.
Top, maybe 400, maybe 600. I'll give him that.
That's the thing.
6,000.
Some nights it's 900.
That's the thing
I think
that bothered me about the hotel. Like, it wasn't like near the parks or anything. It wasn't like inside the park or anything like that. It was just its own separate thing, right?
Yeah.
That part never made sense to me. I don't.
It wasn't like the hotel here where you could walk into the park. Mm-hmm. Or you can walk into Galaxy's Edge. No.
Because it was supposed to be an all-immersive thing.
You get an allotted time to be in Galaxy's Edge. Like, you get maybe an hour or 2.
Oh, thumbs up.
Mm-hmm.
You get an hour or 2, and most of that time is spent, I guess, if you want to, doing missions on your phone.
Oh, that don't work.
That do not work. And I think a big flaw in this is you do not have time to breathe. You feel like you're working the whole time. And for a lot of people who were actively going out of their way to be a part of the story, that was a fucking lie. A lot of people were just not able to do that as far as...
Stuff to work.
Yeah, stuff was not working left and right. It was a big failure. And I think right now, today, as a matter of fact, for summer 2024, Disney sent out this deal for, like, if you want to do a 3-day...
Oh, yeah. A lot of people
day,
were talking about that.
Yeah, 1 day per park ticket at Disneyland. I think the TikTok that I saw included this family wanted to do the Pixar Place Hotel. Normally, for a 2-day, that would have been 2,700. But I think with the 3-day kicking in, it went down to 2,200. So, we're talking about $6,000 for the Galactic Star Cruiser, but you're not on vacation. You're there to fucking work and be around people who are in character the entire time. On top of the fact that the overall spaces were tiny, on top of the fact that the rooms themselves were even tinier. But at least you got like this LED, like a TV window where you have like space. I can do that from here in my own room at YouTube. I could go on YouTube and like literally, yeah, thumbs up. And I can literally just like open up a space like one of these live wallpaper backgrounds and do that for free. I'm gonna go to fucking like Florida and spend $6,000 just to get a room with fucking that and LED lights. I've got LED lights right here.
My favorite part was, I didn't even like realize this because I didn't watch the video of the lightsaber, but so I think you saw the video, David, of the lightsaber where they were like, "Oh, this like lights up on its own."
What, Josh Tomorrow?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that was funny.
They have to hold the lightsaber like this because it's so delicate.
Yeah.
And that's how they kind of were like, yeah, like we're gonna do all, like you're gonna get to see this live. You're gonna get to see this, like, it literally is so fragile.
It's so fragile. There's just instant. So the big finale show has the Rey character use that. That was so funny. So she has the lightsaber, hold it up like this, right? It lights up. And then you literally see her like kneel down. You don't see it on camera, but you know what she's doing with her arm movements.
Because she's
like
down there for yeah.
Yeah. She sets it down.
Picks up another one.
And then picks up another one. That she can easily like actually use. I think to me, the part that was like, oh, I would like burn this place to the ground, was the dinner show.
Yeah, you would.
I would burn this place to the motherfucking ground. I don't even care what the consequences would be. Because, and I literally could not believe that happened. I spent the most time when she was in that section of the video just wondering, how could this have happened? How is this even possible? So, it's a dinner show. It's a dining hall area. And Jenny's table is like literally the only one that had something in her way that obscured the entire view. Like, and she had a fucking pole in front of her. And she couldn't see anything of the show.
And
even when they walked up and they went to the other end.
Yeah.
When they walked up and went to the other end, let's say you were facing the front, now you're at the back, there was yet another pole that was conveniently blocking the view from that particular angle. And I'm like, are we talking about Disney? Disney has literally built a theme park empire, and they have done that because they were fucking amazing and great. But now, is this where we have been so diminished to, where we can't even spot such obvious design flaws?
Yeah.
Like, it was bad.
That honestly, okay, so the thing about that is, as soon as you walk in and start your experience, whatever, they like shove down your throat this grand experience during your dinner, this like they promote it in the hotel, like with posters, with like holograms, with things like that that, like, you know, the character that you're gonna see during the show is walking around, like, it's they make it up into, like, this big thing, and I think that and the ending was, like, the things that she was most excited about, and she could not see a single thing. And to what Alexis was saying, Disney is very known for, you know, this whole thing of, like, where everybody could see everything that's going on, but also telling you, hey, you might not be able to see it through here. Maybe you should go somewhere else. Like, that to me, from this whole time that I've gone to Disney, that's something that I always have noticed. And, like, for that to happen in, like, the most expensive thing that Disney has done is insane.
It kind of leaves you a little bit just, like, speechless, right? Like, how could this have happened? And then, of course, they had the fucking... Of all the people, she was the only one that was even vlogging. Like, you'd think they would at least have the foresight to Now, that being said, she wasn't there on a media trip. She was there of her own volition. She paid for the whole thing. And good for her for also calling out all the other people who literally went on those free trips and, you know, released such glowing reviews. I wonder why they were invited in the first place. But she literally had, like, I think the most comprehensive breakdown for why this failed, but then also why Disney themselves in this era is just kind of like, they're so out of touch. They're so out of touch. And it makes me genuinely, like, concerned now, because I think, to me, going into this decade, I knew... I think now we're at a point where it's kind of this prediction that Disney was going to suck this decade has already more than proven itself to be true. But when we entered 2020, I was like, yeah, Disney Animation, Pixar.
We were a bit iffy on the parks.
The parks was the only thing where, like, maybe they can make some good things, and that isn't to say that they can't. You know,
they just got approved for another big expansion at Disneyland.
Yeah, and we'll see what becomes of that. So that isn't to say that can't happen. But this Galactic Star Cruiser just shakes you a bit. And, like, that was such a big miss. Yeah. It is perhaps one of the biggest embarrassments for Disney that they've ever endured. But to be honest with you, the more we get into this decade, the easier they're making it. Well, actually, the harder they're making it for us to really care if they succeed or not. You know? I feel like what Bob Iger has been doing these last couple of months has just been so unbelievably misguided and so unbelievably tone deaf. He's just made a series of decisions that will set back this company even more. And I'm happy. I'm happy that that will happen. I feel strongly in that a lot of these are going to backfire and are going to be disastrous. I'm not happy that Disney, in the name of Disney, is in decline. I'm hopeful that perhaps his lack of creativity is going to be exposed. It's
starting to bite him in the ass.
Yeah, I think his position at Disney right now is beginning to feel like Kevin Feige, where Kevin Feige, I think, to us has been exposed as just somebody who got lucky in the last decade. And I think we're beginning to realize Bob Iger just got fucking lucky. And the timing was right for what he was able to do. The timing right now is not right. We did not mention last week that there was a teaser trailer for Moana 2. I should say Moana 2 in quotations, because that's not a real movie. It was a Disney Plus 6-episode series that they just literally made into a movie. And if you watch that trailer, that's exactly what it's going to be. Passing that off as Moana 2, again, that's not even knowing your own history of your own company. When you've done that in the past, it hasn't worked out, and here you are doing it again because you are so desperate to show off these investors. And you know what? Fuck the investors and fuck this economy and fuck the situation that we're in. This is why it's so fucking stupid to have a system in which the most important thing is growth, 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 growth. It's nonsense. And it only just allows a situation where we're just destroying everything. Just for the sake of like more consumer growth. You know? And so all of this is to say, it was already bad enough where we were. Right?
Yes.
Now, with Pixar, they've been doing really good lately with some great films. One of those films that did not do greatly was the Buzz Lightyear movie. And to say that out loud, in 2024, I guess if you consider how the company has been acting lately, would almost seem like you were speaking out against Christ or something. Because something is just not right in the water over there at Disney, or they have just, purposefully turned their guns on everybody else and just gone and doubled down and tripled down into this campaign of lies. Lightyear, and this is the thing, was one of the clearest, not even the biggest, it was one of the biggest, but it was one of the clearest examples that any of us can think of like, fuck, that bombed hard and nobody cared and nobody wanted to see it. Now again, at the time, there was a lot of blame to go around because of that. The marketing campaign was a disaster. But it should have shown Disney that literally just trying to keep franchises going, especially in situations where it didn't make the most sense, it should have showed them you can't do that. Even you can't do that. And there does become a point where the audience themselves really just raises their eyebrow at you and says, really? But evidently, that lesson did not seem to be learned, despite the fact of how obvious it was, considering the fact that the company had publicly made known how they felt it was such a failure to the degree that they literally fired the director of the movie from Pixar. That never happens.
Which was also not a great look on them either.
No.
Because that was somebody that was with Pixar for a very long time.
Right. That's true. That probably shouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have made that decision. I thought it was, really unfair. But it was striking at the time because Disney had literally just basically all but confirmed, we admit that was a failure. Well, evidently times change. And we're at a new year and things are not the same. There was this interview that was going around. This interview was done with Bloomberg. And it was titled, Disney is banking on sequels to help get Pixar back on track. It was written by Thomas Buckley. And the part that was getting the most traction from that interview, and evidently this was an interview with Pete Docter. And I have to say, we will discuss how much this is Pete Docter's mindset and how much this is Bob Iger's mindset.
Yeah.
But I was very disappointed to hear this. So disappointed to the extent that, well, what's the point of anything anymore? This is what the article read. After Lightyear lost millions of dollars in 2022, and Elemental had Pixar's worst ever opening weekend performance the following year, even there, you just want to stop and say something.
Immediately, as soon as I read that, I said, wait.
Are you equating those things as the same?
What?
I'm literally going to stop right there and then just go back to you two. Are we literally about to say, though, and especially, this is what the media does a lot sometimes. It's like, okay, that was the narrative at first, but it shouldn't have been the narrative at first because, and this is the spot that we've been post-COVID, where we are so, just dialed in on how much money a movie is making on the first weekend that somehow dictates, is it a failure? Is it a success? We talked about this last week, Alexis, about a lot of films like Challengers and The Fall Guy and even Planet of the Apes to an extent, where because they're not performing like fucking superhero blockbusters, that all of a sudden means, oh no, they're failures. We have to rush them to streaming because otherwise, who would care? Turns out, Challengers and Fall Guy are doing just fine at the box office.
And Elemental.
And you know what? Elemental did more than just fine. It made almost $500 million worldwide. It kicked Lightyear's ass by a bunch of miles and then some. And to somehow equate those two as anywhere near the same is just flatly and blatantly untrue. After Elemental okay, sure. Maybe Elemental had the worst ever opening. Mm-hmm. But why does that somehow not take into account? And it doesn't, because that article doesn't tell you, a lot of franchises in 2023 had the worst ever opening for a franchise. Why? Because the audience decided, we're tired of you. Or maybe we just don't want to see you just yet. There were a whole host of reasons. With Elemental, it turned out that people were just taking their time to go see it. At the same time, it was up against The Flash, which, mind you, also underperformed dramatically and also was the lowest opening of that franchise. But still, it's a superhero movie and it's going to get more traction and people are going to prioritize that first.
Yes.
We're just living in a fantasy land and we're not going to acknowledge the conditions that existed when that happened. Did it look bad that it opened so low the first week? Yes. But it ended so strong and on such a high point. And that right there, that opening sentence, just seemingly negated that ever happening in the first place. Mm-hmm. So we're not even a sentence in and I'm already pissed off at this bullshit. So this is the part where it transitions to a quote from Doctor. There was a real and intense period of self-scrutiny and feeling like we messed up in some way.
It wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. You guys were literally set up to fail.
Even in Lightyear, which I think Lightyear warrants a lot of self-reflection, very clearly, that was something that was mandated by your parent company to do. It's such a Disney move to say, make a fucking sequel and make it now. And that's what they did. And they were like, well, how the fuck are we going to do this? Okay, let's just do it. And there are a lot worse movies than Lightyear. But Lightyear, I think, is the worst Pixar film because it is just so empty and has no reason. Like, it literally does not justify its own existence. Like, the characters themselves aren't very interesting. The setting isn't very interesting. The story isn't very interesting. It literally just felt like one of those movies that they were forced to make. And in such a degree to where there was literally no redeeming quality about it. So this continues. Executives hosted post-mortems. Executives, I'm gonna stop there again. The last people that should have any kind of postmortems are executives. They are the dumbest people on earth. It was executive decision making that allowed for fucking Pixar to be screwed over by this company and putting it on streaming, thus devaluing not just the entire name of Pixar or the entire name of Disney. Look, this is a real thing. It hurts them so much that when you're on streaming, literally on Disney Plus, that there is no policing of like what is, next to something else, right? Like I know that some people have the Hulu extension, and Hulu for whatever reason it has the Batman and Joker's on there, and it's weird to have that next to things like Planet of the Apes or maybe even fucking the Tinkerbell movies. Who even knows? But that to me is a problem. We need to start understanding that if you are literally putting all that in the same space, it's just so like, what the fuck am I looking at? They need to be separated for a reason, and I think it is a mistake that they allowed, premium content like, Elemental or Luca or Turning Red to be next to stuff like fucking Artemis Fowl or the Diary of a Wimpy Kid animated movie or some half-rate Blue Sky animation film or something that was, God forbid, made by the Disney Channel, and then now it's just there side by side. That's not good. And it devastated them so much so that even other animated films were struggling, like Trolls. Universal made that mistake where Trolls, one of those first films, so revolutionary, so brave. They dumped Trolls World Tour during COVID on digital. And when they tried to bring Trolls 3 back into theaters, people were like, but it's a streaming franchise now. Why am I going to go to watch it in the theater? It is so obvious what were the causes, what were the effects. Executives can never seem to understand that. And so when we're now in this article and it's focusing on them coming together to find out what was the problem, they're going to be fucking dumb as shit reasoning. Okay, let's continue. So executives hosted mortems to determine how to revitalize the studio. The studio wasn't the problem. The studio was making amazing stories. It was the company. It was your dumbasses that was putting the content in the wrong fucking place. They had an amazing from Onward to Soul to Turning Red to Luca to I just got a text from my mom. Why are you yelling? Is something wrong? I just gotta laugh at that. That is so funny.
You're like, everything is wrong.
It is wrong. It is for sure. I'm losing my voice too. Maybe I am yelling. I've been yelling? Okay. Apparently I've been yelling. From Turning Red to Soul to Onward to Luca and Elemental, they had such amazing, wonderful stories. And I think we should all acknowledge that it was literally, as you just said, Alexis, out of the control of anybody at Pixar in very many ways. How they would perform. So it continues. And this is the worst part. This is the part where it just completely devastates you because, and to me, I have to say, this next part felt very much like a personal attack. Because, especially after what we did with, we just did an Elemental reaction a few months ago. And to me, my main talking points walking away from it in our immediate reactions, and you can watch that on our channel right here on YouTube, was that this is the power of films where the directors are very openly allowed to infuse their personality, their essence, their literal history, thumbs up by the way, into the movies themselves, and I think you get a much better outcome. Do I like films like Monsters University? That one's actually really good. It's underrated. I'm just gonna put it out.
What?
Huh?
Naming it. I'm all.
Yeah. Monsters University is actually, I think, one of the better sequels, and people are insane for not acknowledging that. But look, MU, Finding Dory, Incredibles 2, Toy Story 4, Cars 3, Cars 2, all those movies, I feel, with some exceptions, I don't think there is... I think for the most part, they're all good movies, except for 2, I think, in my view. And some of them are actually really entertaining, and they're good movies. But I think there's such a big difference between those and the other newer ones, like Onward and Soul and Luca and Elemental and Turning Red, because all of those other stories did come from a personal standpoint. It did come from a personal story, from a personal perspective. And they felt more special. And I also remember them more. Again, I like Toy Story 4. I like Finding Dory. Do I like the other ones? Okay. But do I think about them as often? No, I do. I love MU. I think MU probably, let's be real here, might be the best Pixar sequel of the 2010s.
Not Finding Dory?
I like Finding Dory. What are you saying here? I like Finding Dory. It's great in its own right, but I feel like MU, maybe it's because I like MU a lot more than Monsters Inc. That's just me. And I also related to MU. We had a whole audio commentary, Alexis, which you can listen to on our channel right here.
Yeah, Monsters University might be my favorite Pixar movie.
Yeah, and you know what? God bless you for saying that.
We need to do another list, because...
We do.
There's so many. And I feel like I've grown.
It's been 5 years.
Yeah, I've grown a lot in these last weeks.
Yeah, it's been a lot of years, and there have been more movies now, and we can reevaluate where we are with those films and all. But I will say I think Monsters U was the best sequel that came out from Pixar that decade. But more to the point, those films, yes, made a lot of money, but they didn't necessarily stick all that well in the consciousness of the pop culture zeitgeist in ways that these newer films have. I mean, so it really does make me scratch my head when I see statements that say that somehow those weren't successful. And it feels, dare I say, sinister when the implication very much is that they're trying to make them be the scapegoat for their own fucking terrible decisions. So, this is what they arrived at. It says here, they arrived at mentoring Pixar's upcoming directors to focus less on autobiographical tales. Luca had been inspired by its director's childhood in Italy, Turning Red by its director's relationship with her mother, and Elemental. And it says here, I don't want to stop this right. Oh, okay. Elemental, and then it says in a comma, not in a comma, but in quote, in a parentheses, which did gain some momentum overseas and online. I'm gonna have to stop you right there. Elemental did more than just that, but also, are you trying to suggest that Turning Red and Luca didn't have momentum online? Because that has to be some of the, just, again, false. I don't necessarily know the stats for Turning Red. I'm sure it was high up. I know Turning Red is beloved by the kids, by the way. But it is a huge streaming hit. But Luca was the most streamed movie of 2021. How does that not qualify as gaining traction online? Okay, I'm going to continue. So, an Elemental by its director's immigrant family. Pixar would instead develop concepts with clear mass appeal. Again, I'm going to stop right there. Part of the reason why some of us on this podcast were not very much interested in Elemental was because if the trailers themselves felt like a parody of a Pixar film, because it felt less like an autobiographical tale, and it felt more like one of these concepts that were developed with the clear intent to get mass appeal. And let's be real, there was a reason for that low opening weekend. Pixar's never been great at trailers. Those specifically weren't very good. And I think it's been made abundantly clear that the only reason Elemental was able to get to where it was in the finish line was because of word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
It continues. Pixar would instead develop concepts with clear mass appeal, many of which, in the case of sequels and spin-offs, had already been proven. In the case of sequels and spin-offs, had already been proven. Except for the one that you mentioned at the top of your article right there, which is called Lightyear, where audiences clearly, in mass, rejected it across the board. And I'm not hearing any headlines that Lightyear was a big hit on streaming either. So... Continues. The studio's movies would be less a pursuit of any director's catharsis. This is just twisting the knife. And instead, speak to a commonality of experience. Doctor says, I don't think we can ever let ourselves off the hook of making sure that we deliver the best possible and most relatable films.
That is...
I hate...
That honestly makes me so, emotional. Because one of the things that I have said, we've all said, in this kind of new decade of Disney, is that we're so happy that kids get to grow up with these stories. That's so annoying.
This also comes off the heels. Months ago, Bob Iger made some statements that seemingly validated the go woke, go broke crowd by saying that they were going to focus less on messaging and more on stories that would appeal to everybody. Where do we even begin? To react from those comments. I concur with you, Alexis, that they are very saddening. They're very saddening because I think most of all because these kids that are growing up in this generation were able to experience such cathartic storytelling. But the idea coming from these executives and coming from Disney that somehow a director's personal catharsis has absolutely no place in the filmmaking process, you have to wonder, do these people even know how to make fucking movies? No, they don't know how to make fucking movies. They're fucking idiots. The director, any good director, is how Steven Spielberg always says, no matter if you intend for the story that you are doing to have any traces of you or not, it's going to have traces of you because of how much in the process you are involved in the story. You have to care first and foremost to devote years of your life to doing this project. And at some point along the line, a lot of you is going to appear in the finished product, so long as you are allowed for that to happen. There are plenty of franchise studio films that do not allow for that to happen and thus end up being the garbage that they are. Can anybody tell me, anybody watch Madam Web and say, well, that was at the very least a cathartic experience for the director? No. Not even closely. Unless her own mom was somehow personally killed by spiders in the Amazon while they were researching, I don't know, whatever the fuck the line was. But Luca, Turning Red, Elemental, Onward, those movies would not exist if it not for all Dan Scanlon, Domi Shi, Enrico Casarosa, Peter Sohn, for literally taking inspiration from their own personal lives, showing the world who they were, and thus being able to help people along the line. There were not movies that were created with the intention of like, we have to get this message right and not this movie right. They're one and the same. And Disney somehow thinking that there is a separation of that just to get some points from the fucking hate crowd that is just there to always hate no matter what you're going to do is unbelievably foolhardy and is not going to get them anywhere. If this is how they're going to use, this is the way they're going to make movies going forward, I shudder to think how bad it's really going to get, honestly. And I think there's the other thing that, should kind of go already at this point without having to be mentioned, but it is so unbelievably unfair to literally Onward and Soul and Luca and Elemental to an extent, but more so Turning Red. Many of them didn't get the opportunity to perform theatrically. Some of them were actually not allowed to be in theaters and just went straight to streaming. And yet somehow the company is holding that against those films and those creators. I'm going to throw it to you guys.
In terms of like the whole box office thing, the weekend box office, how people put a lot of weight to that, it's been getting really annoying lately.
Yeah. I
remember 2-3 years ago, maybe, I was still working at the grocery store, and I'm listening to this podcast, title of it, Hollywood is burning, or Hollywood is in disaster, or, Hollywood is in fear, or something like that. And I remember specifically this moment where this guy goes, that last weekend was the lowest the box office has ever been. Like, literally, like, the lowest any theater has ever made, ever, in history and all that. And then I'm hearing that now. And it's like, is this just this stupid constant conversation that Hollywood is doing bad, or like Hollywood's gonna go broke, go broke and all that bullshit? But it's not. Like, it's been fluctuating. That is very clear and all that, but it's not really doing that bad in a sense. Yes, is it compared to 2019 with the Avengers movies? Like, yeah,
but
bad.
We live in a different time.
That's the thing. It's a different time now. Yes, the studios.
It's not the pandemic. It's the fucking streaming thing. They brought it on themselves, and what are they doing? They're only doubling down on the decisions that created this in the first place.
They're literally gaslighting us.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, so this has just been like a long time coming.
And don't forget that we also squeezed in a 6-month period in which they tried to crush their workers. That's the thing, is like the schedule that we're seeing right now of films opening right now happened as a direct result of the strikes, because these people were literally trying to basically enslave their talent and not give them what they're actually owed. This has now created this backlog in which the kinds of movies that are opening right now, and the media coverage around that when it comes to their box office performance isn't acknowledging that.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it? Jaws. You don't talk about that movie and just think about the opening weekend. You talk about its entire run and how much it made and how that much it changed.
It was in theaters for over a year.
Yes. Like, no classic movie ever gets talked about because of its opening weekend. We talk about its entire run. And even I mention this time and time again, but for Barbie, Oppenheimer, and Super Mario, those made $1 billion, but it took 3 weeks to do that. Would any of these other movies that came up make $1 billion? No, but that should tell you, like, some of the most anticipated movies of 2023, it made big because it was most anticipated, but it didn't make Avengers level money on its opening weekend. Like, it's a whole entire different thing. And basically, when I say it's like movie theaters generally, they're gonna like bounce back and all that at some point, but it's not gonna work with that fucking comment about Elemental, what they're trying to focus on from now on. It's an annoying thing, another annoying thing, where time and time again, us specifically and many others want diversity in movies, in its casting or in its stories. And who are the ones that complain? It's literally white people that complain about that, because what is their excuse is that they're being left out. They're being, aren't you limiting yourself when you focus on like a specific crowd? Let's say if I make a movie about Asian American or something like that, aren't I limiting myself in the storytelling? Somehow they don't get it inside their brains that like when we want diversity because we want people to other people's stories to be told, it's because there's commonality in our differences. That's kind of like the big thing with Godzilla -1. You literally had so many people, even the ones that hate do the whole go woke go broke thing, were like, oh, like I related to this story and everything. It's like, okay, but you do realize that there was a difference though, right? Like there was a huge difference within our culture and you somehow found commonality with it. That is why we want diversity. That is why we want other people's stories to be told, because even though we're different, we are the same in some sense. The point
of us, I mean, I think, to me, a big thing of us being here is like finding harmony in us, like living together.
That's so stupid.
And it's so like, it just gets me so angry that they use that as an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
When I don't know. Continue, dude. Sorry. It gets me so angry.
Yeah. No. Yeah. And no, I mean, that was basically it. It's just, I don't understand how you don't see that making these stories, ones that are very personal to your writers, which you mentioned, Alexis Soto, like, it needs to be personal, because why the fuck else am I gonna work on this for, Like, the first person who needs to like this story, if I'm writing a story, the first person that needs to like it is me. This is kind of why people say, like, don't worry about the fans, or like, ignore the fans or something like that. It's because you kind of have to like it first. Obviously, keep in mind of the fans, of the audience and everything and all that, because you do have to add some things, for other people to like. This is something that you notice in Pixar films, where there's some little jokes every once in a while that like kids would not get and everything. But at the end of the day, you're the one that's supposed to like it at the end, And yeah, maybe it won't make $1 billion, but the amount that it makes, it's gonna impact someone. It's gonna hopefully impact others. So, yeah, it's just this article, stupid.
And it makes me so sad that they had him, like specifically this person, go out and say this.
Mm-hmm.
Because, granted, obviously we're not in there and we're not, don't know the full details of like what is actually going on. We can kind of guess, but that's all we could do. But given his track record, given Pixar's track record of, they literally fought against Chapek. You know what I mean? So it makes me sad that this was said by this specific person who is in charge of this specific studio.
Who also reports to the man that made him say these things, Bob Iger, who has also been saying similar things on the record in recent months. Some reaction for you from Twitter. Jonathan Hard to overstate how much despair I felt reading this sentence about one of the last Hollywood production companies giving us big budgets to original personal stories. And then Carlos Aguilar saying, truly awful to see Pixar leadership bad-mouthing some of their recent works like Luca and Turning Red, which are two of the very best films they've ever put out, precisely because they come from a specific place both personally and culturally. Lon Harris, this is so grim. We're going to stop telling stories with personal meaning and just try to aim for whatever is broadly popular. It is the actual opposite of how you make good things. One other one said, Luca and Turning Red were released straight to streaming. What are we doing here? Jonathan Burdett, Finding Nemo, one of the biggest hits in Pixar's history, was born out of director Andrew Stanton being born as a very sick baby and the love he has for his parents.
No. I didn't know that.
For Pixar specifically, they always make original stories, so they need to be...
Don't tell me that. Oh my god.
So, their stories need to be personal because that's the only way it's going to be original. But for every other studio, they're trying to find, what's that word they're saying? Popularity, that.
Yeah.
Focus on the popularity of it. There's other things out there. Like, mangas are doing really, really well lately. Far more better than comic books. Go for that. Go for that. And then, there is a bit of a focus with video game adaptations now and everything. There's other things to focus on. If you want to focus on popularity, there's those things out there. But in terms of the franchises that we've had for the past couple of years, they're starting to get old. You're going to have to either stop it completely or take your time.
Then there's the other aspect of it from the cultural standpoint. Josh Schur says, ironic to read this as Asian American Heritage Month ends and Pride Month begins, with Pixar tilting away from the hilarious / culturally specific Turning Red and the lovely queer coming of age of Luca, which, by the way, were my favorite two Pixar films of the last decade. Timing couldn't be any more perfect for them to do this. See again. So one Aaron Baker says, I can see the point about childhoods specifically, but also many of the best films are written with personal experience woven into the story. There is value in putting yourself in your films to help them resonate. That's how most Pixar films started after all. And I think this one kind of caps it off. Animated Antic says, Hollywood's broken practices and stupid decisions have been really making me feel very demotivated lately. It's so genuinely frustrating seeing execs with these yachts screw over creators trying to tell stories just for another yacht. I just want this nonsense to stop already. Here's another one. Andy's life in Toy Story isn't a quote-unquote commonality of experience, by the way. He is a white kid in the suburbs, and how that's depicted is as specific to his identity as May's life is in Turning Red. Throwing POC, people of color directors, under the bus to justify only making films white people can relate to is wild. And there it is. When they say commonality of experience, who do you think they had in mind? They continue. It's clear they chose their wording very carefully here, but the message comes through loud and clear. POC experiences are other, quote unquote. White experiences are universal. It's extra weird because the films they are scapegoating here were all critical successes released during a pandemic. Like, I get it. Pixar films used to be basically guaranteed $1 billion at the box office. Well, close to $1 billion. Some of them did. And your priority is convincing shareholders you can make that happen again. Even better if you can con the public into thinking you're doing it to save Pixar's artistic spirit, but you aren't. And that's the part that's the most disgusting, where he says, what they say here, even better if you can con the public into thinking you're doing it to save Pixar's artistic spirit. Which is what these comments are. They're gaslighting.
Yeah.
Maybe, just maybe, there's more to this, and you really are trying to find a realistic path forward, but it sure seems like corporate greed, killing creativity, and blaming POC creatives along the way.
Yep.
And we should note, this company overall has been unusually more hostile toward POC directors and voices lately. And that's not even, I'm not talking about the Chapek stuff. Since Iger has taken over, are we going to forget what they did to Nia DaCosta after the Marvels came out?
Yep.
Like, they even had their friends throw together a bullshit article about how she was like partying it up and celebrating her birthday instead of going to the premiere of her movie. What? Like, so, by the way, I also, Alexis, did not know that about Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
And Andrew Stanton.
That hit me.
That
hard.
was, yeah. But evidently, it doesn't seem to matter to anybody else. So, anyway. And I really, it gets me scared for Elio.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to see that movie.
We were supposed to see it this month. But we had to make room for Inside Out 2, which that's also the other elephant in the room here, right? We haven't mentioned that, and it's about to come out in a couple of days. I feel conflicted.
I'm excited for it.
In any ideal situation, I want a Pixar film to be great. And if a Pixar sequel can be great, let's do it. And I
mean, I think out of any Pixar movie, this one lends itself the easiest for a sequel.
But still, it makes you wonder. I can't get over the fact of, why are you here? Oh, I know why you're here. Because Bob Iger needed you to be here.
Yeah.
Why is Utopia 2 happening? Why is Moana 2 happening? Why is Frozen 3 and 4 happening? Well, that was going to happen regardless. Why is Toy Story 5 happening? Like, that when you add all that together, it's like...
But then also...
It feels gross. I'm sorry to... I'm just saying... It feels gross, but I'm not denying that it can be good. Mm-hmm. My expectation is that it's going to be good, because Pixar usually is able to wrap it around and make good movies. But... I can't get over the fact of the only reason you're here in the first place is to basically stand for everything that I hate.
Yeah.
David.
I was gonna say, I agree that Inside Out, like, does lend itself to making sequels. The thing though, I think they went.
It makes more sense than Toy Story 5. Let's be real.
For sure. The thing though, I think they went about it the wrong way. I mentioned this before. It shouldn't be Riley as the main character. It should have been someone else. You could have connected it. You could have been like, here's Riley. It's like, this is how she is now. It's like, but let's just go to her friend who is dealing with a whole different thing, and then maybe you can connect it back. Maybe it can be like this thing of like how their friendship is. I mean, it's kind of what this sequel is gonna do, but the main focus is still Riley. Though you could have done it with a different character, where the dynamic is different, with the emotions or something, and could have brought about something else. But instead, they used Riley again. They brought new emotions, which I kind of iffy about those new emotions, just because I feel like you had a good set with the original. Adding more to them just kind of feels like, why weren't they there in the first place? Because I mean, we all feel some kind of like embarrassment or anxiety when we're kids.
I will give them the excuse that, well, as we age, we grow into different emotions.
Sure.
I'll give them that. What I agree with you is more so. By the way, that's not me disagreeing with you. I can definitely I see where you're coming from, where perhaps it feels a bit like forced. Okay, I think to me the one that stands out as the clearest issue is we're talking about two different teams and two different movies. The character designs of Inside Out are, and the characters themselves, joy, sadness, anger, fear, disgust. When you put them next to these new ones, granted, with anything new, it is going to be a bit jarring to an extent. However, and I'm not saying that can't be resolved in the movie itself, but in the marketing, something just feels like, were you designed by the same artists? Because you kind of look very just like we're talking about. You look kind of like designs from different movies here, and it looks a little bit off. That's the part that's getting me the most, about this movie.
It feels like they added the emotions that they threw away in the first one.
Ouch.
But I'm still excited, and I'm still interested to see what they're gonna do. But it does kind of feel that way. Because to me, the first one was very thought out in what they chose for the emotions. It just felt intentional. Whereas this one, it doesn't. Like, they have that new one, Nostalgia. Okay.
Oh, they do?
Wait, what?
Yes.
I didn't.
Seriously?
I didn't know that.
But I think it's for the parents.
But they already showed nostalgia, though. Like, not the emotion itself, but like how that works. In that they bring up a memory and then they project it. Like, that's nostalgia in a sense. That's why I'm like,
I don't know. It was in the promotion.
No, I know, but like, this is my complaint though. It's like, why you doesn't make any sense. Like with Envy, why can't it just be like disgust and anger both touching the console, and then that's how Envy is created in a sense, and then embarrassment, that's just fear. Or I don't know what you can combine it with exactly with the other emotions or something. So it doesn't make any sense.
See, it sounds like maybe they shouldn't have made a sequel.
Yeah, like
you're inviting these questions.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the same thing that's happening with This is the same thing that happened with Toy Story, especially with the whole Forky thing. Where you just kind of like, hold up, now we got to think about like how these sentient toys are coming to life. Hold up, And then same thing with Cars happen, where they're just kind of like, there's a car Jesus in this world because they see the Pope in Cars 2 or something like that. The Pope mobile. And so it's just like, how does this world work exactly? Come on. And so, I mean, this always happens with their movies specifically, but with...
I think the ones that walked away unscathed were definitely MU and Dory. I think they felt like they fit really at home in their worlds.
For sure.
I guess also Incredibles 2, but I don't remember Incredibles 2 all that. Incredibles 2 to me looked and felt like a high-budget direct-to-DVD Disney sequel.
I think that's what this is going to be. Again,
that's not good
because I'm just interested to see what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, maybe the movie proved me wrong.
But
like,
it's
maybe...
also like the age that Riley is now. It's a little like... It's like that preteen angst type of thing. And I'm like... They're kind of annoying at that age.
Or maybe that's something they could have done in the movie, where, like, you know, I said disgust and anger combine, and that's how you make envy. Why couldn't you just show disgust evolving into, like, more emotions?
Yeah, that's
that's how the parents' emotions look like how they are.
Like Pokemon disgust evolved into
into envy or something like that. Or like, you know, I mean, not evolution, but like maybe that's the reason why the dad's emotions all have like mustaches in the end. Even with the Joy character, who, you know, with Riley.
I mean, maybe it's gonna be because I think you guys have seen the trailer, but they like take over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like her overcoming those feelings. I don't know. So maybe we get to see it for a little bit.
I don't know.
Well, whatever it is, we'll find out soon enough. Unless somehow, you know, someone gets the... No, I'm not going to say it. No. I'm not going to say it. I'm just going to move on. Okay. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and move on into Planet of the Apes. So, quickest thing I can say is, for me, this franchise began at an early age against my will, when I had no interest in seeing the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes. But my parents did. I believe the year was 2001, and I'm like, this thing looks creepy and scary. I don't want to be there. They didn't care. They took me to see the movie. But for whatever reason, the ending of the whole Abraham Lincoln thing always stood out in my memory, because I couldn't really understand what the hell was going on. Mm-hmm. Okay? This is my first memory of that franchise. Then I see 2011 Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and to me, that I will always remember that as like one of my most cherished theatrical experiences, because it felt like I was watching something truly special, and it turned out I was, for a variety of reasons, not the least of which included, I would say, revolutionary visual effects, where you actually were able to have a fucking monkey be there and like be and look realistic. The motion capture done by Andy Serkis among all three of the films were worthy of Academy recognition, and none of them received it, because of course. But even the sequels topped themselves from that point forward. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, I think, came out in the summer of 2014. You have to understand, the summer of 2014, I think, is where all of us kind of really began to do these conversations more often. I always go back to The Winter Soldier in April 2014, where I'm like, wow, it kind of awakened something in me to where, like, we really need to go and watch every movie now. And then summer came out, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and it blew my fucking mind. Like, whoa, this is like one of the, and still to this day, it's like, yeah, there were like, you know, that was the year of Whiplash, Grand Budapest Hotel. We had Birdman, Boyhood, Lego Movie. But I think, to me, still in my heart of hearts, my favorites of the year were, it was Guardians, it was Winter Soldier, and it was Planet of the Apes. And then when War came out, I just remember that movie made me sad. That movie really made me sad. And I had never rewatched it since, because I just like, it was great. Mm-hmm. Like, it was honestly kind of like operatic how great of a finale that was to the whole Caesar storyline, with Michael Giacchino's score and Matt Reeves just like, what Matt Reeves did with those movies was amazing. I
forgot that he directed these movies.
What, that Matt Reeves? Really?
So I watched all three of them that day, right?
Yeah.
I spent all day watching them.
Yeah, she saw all three movies the same day we saw Kingdom.
Not for the first time. I watched.
Yeah, rewatching.
I watched the first one after a very long time of not watching it, and I was like, damn, this movie still holds up.
They're kind of perfect movies.
Holds up.
All three of them are kind of perfect movies in my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I had watched the second one, but I honestly didn't, because I think I didn't watch it in theaters. I think I watched it at home, like in passing. So I couldn't really remember it, and then I had never seen the third one. At the end of the third one, it said, like, I mean, all of them came out Matt Reeves, but I wasn't paying attention until the last one, and I was like, that's why. That's why. They were so good.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
So, I mean, yeah, they were just on a whole other level. So that at that point had been my experience with the franchise, and as I mentioned last time, when COVID happened, it kind of made me like not want to go back and revisit that, because it was just like, I feel like when I watch them, it'll just make me relive it, and I'm like the coping thing, so it gets me a little bit scared. However, after watching Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, it made me curious to go check out the classic movies for the first time. So I saw the original movie, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, followed by Escape of the Planet of the Apes, followed by Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, followed by Battle for the Planet of the Apes, and then I rewatched, not all of it because it wasn't very good, the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes. I mean, you could just tell that one was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
It was a different energy, and it's whatever. So I can now say that I've seen all 10 of the films in this franchise.
Dang.
Yeah, 10 movies, but of course, different continuities, different through lines, but also just very different eras. The Burton movie in itself is its own like feel. The Reeves movies, or I should say the Caesar trilogy. This new one is more in line with those, and then of course the old ones are like, whoa, those are a trip. I would say that I did go back and watch Kingdom again with the family, and I noticed there were a lot of, I guess you could say Easter egg / throwbacks to a lot of the iconography from the original films.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's the scene in Kingdom where Noah, Raka, and Nova are gonna walk across this bridge, and there are these like scarecrow looking things that, you know, the camera actually pinpoints to, and those are actually in the original film. That I didn't realize the apes put there to keep their own kind from going into the forbidden zone and discovering the origin of man in that area. Also in that same scene, I don't know who did the music for Kingdom, but there was very much an homage to the original like motif that you would get in the Planet of the Apes movie from 1960, wherever it came out. So that was pretty cool to catch those things. So I love this franchise. I even love it more now, having seen the old films, and I can appreciate how weird and wacky it comes from to like how, you know, it is now. So that's my history with them. What about you guys?
I remember when we were little, there was this park in Tijuana that we used to go to. I mean, we didn't used to go to, we went like once or twice. But they filmed a lot of movie stuff there, because they do film a lot of film studios film in Tijuana. And so they had like different sets for movies. So they had like something for Titanic, because that was shot there. They have something for X-Men, because apparently that was shot there. And they had something for, I believe it was the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes movies. So I knew about them because of that, but I had never seen them until the Caesar ones. Like I remember watching clips, and like I've seen pictures, and I was like, oh, I'm not into this. But that first movie was so good. I remember in high school we used to do this thing to like me and my friends. Um, I believe I watched that first movie like multiple times in the theaters because it was just so good. And
The 2011 one.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then rewatching it now after a very long time of not seeing it, like I said, it still holds up. And not that there was a lot of things that I forgot, but just like small moments that I was like, oh dang, okay, it was like watching it for the first time again. That, yeah, it's so good.
David.
Yeah, I've never seen the original 2, but I have seen like the third, fourth, and fifth ones. They were just showing it on TV one day, and I remember just like immediately it caught my attention because in the third one, I think it's the third one at least, the apes like crash land, but they're in like in the 70s or the present time when the film was made, and I see them like spacesuits coming out of the ocean and everything. I'm like, oh wait, what is this? It's like it's old and everything. They take off the helmets and it's apes, and I'm like, and then the music like it was kind of weird. The music like I don't know. They get I could be wrong, but it had like this like ding, 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 like type of rhythm or something. I could be wrong. And I'm just kind of like, what the fuck is this? And then I just started watching it, and then I somehow saw the rest of them after that. And so those are really cool to watch because I knew of the franchise and everything. And so when I saw that, like, oh, this is the beginning of like the Planet of the Apes, I thought it was interesting. And then I think I might have seen like bits and pieces of the Tim Burton one. I mainly just remember the ending with the whole Abraham Lincoln statue there. And so yeah, those from the original. Then when I first saw the movie, though, for me watching the first one, like the Caesar trilogy, I was just kind of like, it's a good start. That's kind of what I thought. Like I thought I was enjoying like the lead up to him becoming like super smart, gaining an army and everything. And I do love the moment with the no, because again, if you saw the third one, they tell that story about the first one.
They do, and again, it's about two different Caesars. But like I also thought that to myself when I was watching it. The third one in the original continuity was Escape of the Planet of the Apes, and you see Cornelius and Zira talk about that instance of how the apes first rose up, and it all began with an ape named Caesar that said no, and then you see that instance in the 2011 movie. Different continuity, but it's still kind of like it gives you like, whoa,
yeah, you still
I love
like,
how they
oh
used
God,
that again.
It's gonna happen. He's gonna do it, and then he says it, and I mean, fucking, oh my gosh, what's his name? The actor, Andy Serkis, fantastic fucking actor. When I rewatched that first one, like a couple of days before Kingdom came out, just as the movie was going on, like moving along, and you see his face getting more and more serious and everything, like he's like, you see him planning out everything. The moment that like just gave me chills even after rewatching it, it was when he like throws the gas at the other apes, and then he sees them come out like one by one, and he's just looking at their eyes. He like lifts their head like, and then looks at them in the eyes, see like they, if it worked on them and everything. I was just like, fuck, that's mine intense.
Is, the part where I think he's like recording, James Franco is recording, and he turns away for a little bit from Caesar, and then Caesar looks at the camera like, all serious? Oh my God, that freaks me out. No.
But yeah, after rewatching it though, I was just like, damn, this holds up. The thing though, I'll bring it up later. I won't be talking about Kingdom. But yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. And then rewatching the second and third. Oh, I didn't actually rewatch the third one. I was doing a podcast with you as Ali and my dad were watching it. But the bits I saw,
War, you mean?
Yeah, they were watching War of the Planet of the Apes.
The second one makes me sad, and then the third one just makes me angry. Because the second one, I mean, it makes me sad because he's like trying to hold it together, and then this stupid other ape is like, well, he's not stupid. He has reason to be angry, but like, chill, bro.
Yeah, for real. Okay. So, with all that being said, shall we get into the new one?
Sure.
Before we do that, I gotta ask you guys, what were your expectations for this movie going into it? Knowing that Matt Reeves wasn't involved, and also understanding that this is no longer 20th Century Fox. This is a 20th Century Studios that's under the guise of Disney. You know, I'll say that for my part, there were definitely some fears that would end up, not translating into a positive experience. What do you guys think?
I forgot about the Fox thing, but I was a little how is anybody else going to top this?
Mm-hmm.
How is anybody else going to understand this as much as he did?
For sure.
That was my thinking.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, same thing, but also had other things in my mind. In that this director, he's going to direct the Legend of Zelda movie, and so I was just like, okay, this is a big world. How are you gonna handle that? After watching it,
go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
After watching it, I think he can handle a big world. I think he did fine with this movie. Well, I mean, might as well just review it. But basically, yeah, I thought the movie was okay.
Before you do that, give me a second. I wanted to read the description from Letterboxd.
Okay.
That people, because our sponsor from Letterboxd. No one can stop the rain. Several generations in the future, following Caesar's reign, apes are now the dominant species and live harmoniously, while humans have been reduced to living in the shadows. As the new tyrannical ape leader builds his empire, one young ape undertakes a harrowing journey, this is long, that will cause him to question all that he has known about the past, and to make choices that will define a future for apes and humans alike. This is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. David.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, one thing I kind of want to ask you guys, do you think you weren't as hyped with this movie because you don't know where it's going to lead? Because that's the one thing, when you watch the first one, you know exactly where it's going to lead. Everything, all these little bits and pieces it's going to lead to the Planet of the Apes. And so some part of you is kind of oh, this is how it happens. Oh, this is how it happens. Oh my gosh, this is how he does this and everything. With this one, you don't really know what's going to happen next. And so you're just kind of there, just kind of experiencing this. And I mean, it's kind of how I thought when watching the first Caesar trilogy. It's okay, it's a good start to your franchise, but I guess we'll see. The things that I do really want to complain about, though, and I mentioned this with Ale, they really need to decide whether or not the apes should talk normally or not, because there is such a break in their dialogue. I can't really tell the difference between them. That was really a problem, because they all talk the same in broken language. Me go to this top of tower and all that. They all talk the same, and I was really having a problem with Noah's friends when they're together. And
you couldn't tell
I literally couldn't tell which one was which, and I couldn't tell which one was the love interest. I didn't even know there was a love interest till the end of the movie. But who was the one that stood out the most, though? It was him, who talked normally. He was different from the rest of them and all that. So I really hope in the next one they kind of just go fuck it and just have them talk normally, because they really need to understand that. Part of the reason why the others in the original trilogy, the apes stood out is, one, they all look different. They had the best friend, the orangutan.
Maurice.
Maurice, yeah.
Maurice and Rocket.
Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, Koba just all fucked up in the face. They all look differently, but they also just kind of like stood differently too, in a sense, especially with Andy Serkis. Like the way he fucking just had this fucking confidence with him whenever he played that character, and just a serious look on his face. It's a standout, not just in his acting, but like just the character design itself. And you don't get that with this movie, with these characters specifically. So I really hope they just kind of like, again, say fuck it and go have them talk normally. Overall with the plot, I enjoyed the little adventure and everything, and how it just keeps coming back to this war against the apes and the humans and all that. My only other complaint was just the middle parts of it could have been cut short. I think a lot of it felt long because of the broken language.
Mm-hmm. I wish I had better. I think I have a good grasp on the film, but I gotta tell you, and this probably takes the conversation away from the movie, but I had a really horrific second viewing experience. And I want to stress that it was horrific to the extent that it wasn't just me that felt rather, I think irritated is charitable. I would just say flat out uncomfortable. There was an individual in the audience who, this is an adult individual, to be clear, not a child, an adult individual who, let's just say, was on the spectrum. And he was making some very loud and oftentimes nonsensical noises, or like he was trying to form words or something. I don't know if he was commenting with the movie or not, but it was so loud that you could literally feel everybody around you just feel like this is annoying, but we also acknowledge at the same time that this is probably how he is, and we can't really say anything because of that. We want to be sensitive to that, but at the same time, it lasted throughout the entire movie. And he was accompanied by two parents who did nothing about it. And I'm not even just talking about like random noises. I'm talking about noises like uncomfortable noises, like, like if somebody was like being, I don't know, hurt or something. And then there were like these breathing noises that were also happening. Like I wasn't even sure at one point if a machine was going on behind me, and that's how he was breathing. It was just uncomfortable and that was drowning out, honestly, a lot of what was going on in the movie. I got to the part where Noah, Nova, and Proximus had just finished having lunch or dinner or whatever it was. They walk back in. They had stepped out for a few minutes. They walk back in. And as they walk back in, I stand up and I walk out. That was the first time I have ever walked out of a movie as a direct response of the noise that was happening. I just could not take it anymore. I wasn't feeling well that day, to be clear with you. And on top of that happening was, I think it was kind of giving me an anxiety attack. Like I could not, I walked out, like my heart was beating so fast I could hardly breathe. So I couldn't, I had to remove myself from that environment. It was, I remember my family walked out, and they don't go to the movies as often. They love movies, they don't go to the movies as often. And they walked out like they had just been like tortured for 2.5 hours. Like it was not good. And at the same time, I see the other family walk out that were kind of responsible for this noise. the mom was just like this big smile on her face, like, wow, that was such a good movie. For future reference, the policy in place is the first 30 minutes you have to go register a complaint to guest services for them to do something about it or to get a refund because of that. I am not somebody, my family are not people who actively seek out refunds. But this was so bad that for the first time I actually went to go talk to a manager, not because I wanted to, but because I felt the disappointment in my family's faces, and that just like, that wasn't right, what we had, gone through. And so we talked, and I don't know if it was a luck of the draw, but the manager was so kind and so understanding that he understood the situation that was going on, and he gave us a full refund for that, which was good. That's not what I wanted or expected. I honestly, to me, I wanted to communicate my disappointment, because I don't know. I like to go to the movies to escape. That's what we all go and watch movies for. But that situation was just so... And keep in mind, this comes off the heels of me having seen a completely music-less version of Challengers like 2 weeks before. So it was like back to back, just like, why the fuck am I here paying this money if this is what I'm gonna get? And I want to be clear here. I understand that there are all kinds of people that deserve to go to movies, and I'm not suggesting on any level that that person didn't belong there. But when noise from an individual becomes so intrusive to the point that it's drowning out the audio of the movie, that's a problem. And I don't blame that person. I just blame those around him that just chose to not care for anybody else that paid to be there. Okay? But because of that, I can't really remember much to the specificity of what happens in that second half of the movie. But what I can tell you is, getting back into the film here, I liked it. I had a good time. I like being in this world. There were moments where I was like, that's interesting. I liked some characters more than others. But I do understand a feeling of just like, where is this gonna go? I think the ending does perhaps give us something to latch onto as to where we can form our own suspicions about things. Where they're gonna go next. But as a one-off movie, I would say this is perfectly fine. Maybe fine might be the word for it. I don't necessarily think that this is going to be one of those that I'm going to go back and think about all that often, So I liked Noah. I really liked Raka. Proximus was okay. I'm not really sure what they're trying to tell us about. I'm not sure how the movie feels about Nova. Whether or not the movie feels that she's right or she's just wrong. I'm wondering on some level if the movie thinks that the character that William H. Macy played was right in how he was just trying to tell her, it's over, it's gone, we're not going to get it back. And she was just like she was not going to stop to get that sat information thingy. And then them linking back up with other humans that can still speak and are still intelligent is an interesting development. But it just gets me thinking like, well, that's only going to lead to war, right? Because the apes and the humans, I think, clearly Noah came to a place where he didn't want them around because Nova basically stabbed him in the back. And I feel that's going to set some things up for the next time. For what happens here, I like the dynamic that Noah had with Raka, especially the Nova being thrown in there. I really loved a lot of the film in the middle where Raka is just there existing. I thought, though, the film did make a mistake in killing him. I think he should have been kept around because he really did offer a different flavor. And I could definitely see him being instrumental in things that happen in the third act for sure. I just felt like how he was removed halfway through the film was a bit unceremonious for my taste, especially with how good of a character he was and how well the audience was responding to him specifically. Nova, I'm not quite sure how to feel about her because she very much keeps the cards close to her vest. Again, I can't really decide if... I don't think the movie treats her very much as a sympathetic character, especially towards the end. Especially when we see how prepared she was to just execute Noah at the end with having a gun behind her back. Yeah. Which we can understand on some level. I think might be just for self-preservation. She might not know. I think she's just really scared of these things. And ultimately... But this is the part that's interesting. It's like she very clearly just says it flat out. This isn't yours. This doesn't belong to you. You don't belong on top. I want a world where you're back to where you were and we're back on top. At the same time, she does see these moments of, go figure, humanity in these apes. And so you have to tell me, do you think we end the movie? She delivers the SAT cable thing. Do you think we're going to set up a story here where she is going to be conflicted about what side she is really on? Because she didn't seem that way at all throughout this whole movie. I'm only just questioning the look on her face at the very end. It made me think that she was thinking, was this really worth it? Is this going to get us anything? Was Noah right? So I don't know. It does leave you with a lot of interesting questions. To
me, the thing that I really liked about the first trilogy is that the first and the second one, at least, they leave it off where it's very much like he wants to coexist, which makes it like hopeful, even though we know that what actually happens. Whereas here it just ends not hopeful. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of like, well, I don't really want that either. So I think that's like what is a little off-putting. Mm-hmm. I didn't really like her. Yeah. Because, obviously, with the exception of the third one,
are we supposed to like her?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think we are supposed to like her in this movie. I'm hoping maybe as the movies go along, I'm pretty sure we're going to get a trilogy out of this. Hopefully by the end, maybe we'll be by her side, and that hopefully she'll realize, maybe we can coexist. Because I got a feeling that the reason why she thinks that is because she grew up around people probably telling her, we used to rule this world and all that, blah, blah, blah. We had this and this and this. And so...
Also, I can understand her maybe being a little bit on edge. One thing that's not... I guess it is said that she lost her whole group, right? Mm-hmm. They were all killed, quite recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe she's a little bit PO'd about that.
Yeah, but then also there's just no doubt about it. The apes are stronger. They are stronger beings than us. So if it's a 1-to-1 fight, we're gonna lose always. So it's kind of scary to just be right in front of them and not really know. Especially in her situation at the end, where she straight up betrayed them. She didn't know. Yeah. It's are you gonna kill me here, or are we gonna, can we just leave this off as
I'm not
cool?
Yeah, I'm not talking about like that moment specifically where she has the gun behind her. Like, I think anybody would, and when you take into account everything that has happened.
Yeah.
But that comment specifically, the her wanting to take things back or put things back the way that they were, is such like a, I don't know if the word I'm looking for is ignorant. I don't think so. Arrogant. Which I don't like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's at first it was like to me I saw it as just sad because it's like I think there is some part of her that like likes Noah. She, like you mentioned, Soto. She's realizing there's humanity within these apes and all that, but whatever she grew up on, she just can't let go of that distrust, and so I just kind of found it sad. That's why I don't dislike her as much as you guys.
I guess it like kind of, I mean, is a good commentary on like humanity itself. That we are arrogant beings, and I feel like it is very realistic as something that would actually happen and what the humans would actually say. So I guess there's also that.
Yeah.
But I liked Noah. I thought he was pretty good. I like that we get to see the world as it's evolved and through his eyes, and like everything is kind of new to him because he's also been so like secluded. And like learning things through his eyes while we already know what happened is like interesting.
I would also say what's interesting is, and yeah, this has always been an element that's been ingrained in the history of this franchise, but I think is especially interesting, especially when we think about one of our recent films that we watched, which was Dune Part 2. The idea that Caesar very much is treated like a Jesus figure in this movie was one of those moments like, whoa. For both sides, basically, right? You have Proximus, who was like, "All hail Caesar! Let's spill blood in his name." Then you also have Rocca, who is very much, you get like he's one of the original followers of Christ, if you will, and trying to spread the good word and everything. Really interesting parallels in here, and really interesting commentary on religion when you pair this with Dune Part 2, especially that one. So, but Caesar having a big presence here, at least his name anyway. I was surprised that we opened the film with him.
I know, I was not expecting that at all. No. And then again, I had just finished watching
that one.
Yes, and then that opening, I was done.
Yeah, I was like, but I think, I don't know, maybe because we love Caesar so much, that was the emotional high also of the movie. We open with that, pyre scene, and then technically this is supposed to take place 300 years after, which is a long time.
It is.
But
it's a long time for them to be talking.
Yeah.
That way.
Yeah. That's like I said in my complaint. I don't think
it didn't feel 300 years because of elements like that. It felt like maybe 100 years. I can see, but 300, it feels like we should probably be further down the line if that was the case.
Well, I mean, in terms of the language,
you know how evolution.
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of the language, yes, but like the way they're living their world, though, that I don't mind that. I mean, they're just barely starting off, so I don't think it's I think it's okay with where they're at in terms of how they're living, but in terms of the language, yeah, I think they should be at least be talking normally. Especially because, like I said, like it doesn't make any sense that Noah has like a broken language, but he, what's his name? Rocca, is talking normally. Like he has some of the best jokes in the movie. Yeah. I love that one. It's like, we will call her Nova, or like Nova.
Instant cry.
Yeah, and then he goes, We always call them that. I don't really know why, but that's just what we do. I
know why.
And then those horses with stripes. That's never seen that.
That was
before.
funny.
So like yeah, and then the part of that was because he is talking normally, like I mentioned, like he's the most standout character because of that. Got so confused as to whose character is who in this movie. So
I also agree that they shouldn't have killed him off.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like uneventful as well.
Yeah,
because he was saving her.
Yeah, he's saving her and sacrificing himself. And it's just kind of like, I don't know. I feel like he could have been like, just been further down in the river. Maybe could have come back or something. Save the day.
Or he could have stayed and then been like, nah, I'm not going over there, bro. I know what's over there. I'll meet you back over here. I think that would have worked.
I don't know.
But yeah, overall, this is good.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say it's really hard to live up to what came before, you know? That's the problem. So I guess we'll see what comes next. But I guess to me, I wasn't overly disappointed because my expectations were like, well, I already know it's not going to be this.
Yeah.
So I needed to dial this back down to earth, basically. Yeah. You know? That's kind of where my mindset was at. And I think that's what you need to when you know what you're dealing with.
Agreed.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this?
Nah.
No.
Oh, what's his name? Proximus is really cool.
Yeah,
I thought he was like a...
I liked his motivation. It was really interesting.
Yeah, there were some interesting conversations there.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And the whole like culty aspect of it was cool.
Yeah, that was.
The human that's on his side was really interesting.
Yeah. That's William H. Macy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me wonder, where does he come from?
Exactly.
Where did he come from?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then, actually, I didn't notice this until someone pointed it out. But did you guys ever watch the trailers for this movie?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I did, because I remember thinking it was his son.
Oh.
But then I saw the third one.
But one thing they never brought up is that in the trailer they say like whenever like I close my eyes, I feel like I'm seeing like the whole world or something like that. You know, like they added like it felt like the trailer was adding some spiritual element to the movie and all that. Because if you remember specifically, like it's Noah going like I dream of like the world and like everything, and then it cuts to Raka going like that is not everything and all that. It's like it's supposed to be like this thing of they somehow this spiritual being or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that weird. Like I didn't think about it as I was watching the movie and all that, but it wasn't until I listened to a podcast that someone pointed it out. It's like, were they trying to go for that or what? So yeah, that was weird. Which I mean, you can kind of say they were going for that with the birds, but I think that one made more logical sense than the whole dreaming of seeing the world. So yeah, that was weird.
Yeah. But overall, there's promising stuff that could happen in the future. So I guess we'll see when that happens. Anyway, I can tell by the collective look on our faces that it's time for bed. So with that being said, thank you all for listening. Stay tuned under our big beautiful red spotlight for more content and more. Bye.
Bye.